Happy Bucks. Let's talk about history for a minute. On this day in history, in 1509, Henry VIII married the Spanish Queen Catherine of Aragon. They were divorced in 1533 because she couldn't give him a male heir, so I think he had 5 other wives beyond that. In 1770, Captain James Cook ran his ship aground on the Great Barrier Reef off the coast of Australia on one of his world exploration trips. In 1895, Charles Duryea was granted the first U.S. patent for a gasoline-powered automobile in the United States. In 1927, Charles Lindbergh was awarded the first ever Distinguished Flying Cross Medal for his solo flight across the Atlantic. And finally, in 1930, William Beebe dove to a record-setting depth of 1,426 feet off of Bermuda in a diving chamber he called a bathysphere. Kind of a slow day in history again. At this point, I'll turn it over to Gary and let him introduce our speaker. I'm going to mute everybody's microphone to cut down on the noise. And so, Gary, you'll have to, I'm going to mute everybody. You'll have to unmute yourself to do the introduction.
Okay. Jerry, there were two other Happy Bucks that Elizabeth commented, and so we've got it for here. So Happy Bucks for local businesses that use masks and take care not to spread the virus. And Happy Bucks for the Black Lives Matters marches in Crawfordsville. So thanks, Elizabeth. We need all the Happy Bucks we can get. So I have the pleasure today of introducing, and Jerry, I think you're going to put this on speaker mode, right, for the recording. Have a pleasure to introduce Heather Barajas, who's a judge, Montgomery Superior Court 1. She's been a judge since January 1st of 2015. She presides over a general jurisdiction court with a heavy criminal caseload in a drug treatment court. In conjunction with the Montgomery County Sheriff, she oversees the jail chemical addiction program. Judge Barajas serves as the chair of the Court Security Committee of the Indiana Judicial Commission. Prior to taking the bench, she served 3 years as a deputy prosecuting attorney and had a private law practice for 9 years. Judge Barajas was named Indiana's Outstanding Young Lawyer in 2007. So that must be when she was 13, I guess. But one of the most important things that Judge Barajas is involved in, and I've seen her a few times at the youth service bureaus judging Dancing with the Stars. So maybe she can tell us a little bit about that too, and how she got into that. So Judge Barajas, welcome. And I think you have to unmute your mic and you can go ahead. Thanks.
Thanks for having me. It's really my distinct pleasure to talk about drug court, and I'll talk a little bit about Jpap as well. So I'll address your Dancing with the Stars thing first. I actually danced the first year. I always thought that I could dance pretty well, but as it turns out, if you take the beer out of my hand, I really cannot dance at all. So it was quite an experience. So I danced the first year, and I was the MC the second year, and then I've had the honor of judging since then. And I don't know really anything about dancing, so the judging really is just trying to make comments that keep people entertained more than anything else. So when I took the bench in 2015, Judge All had started the drug court program. I really wasn't sure that I was going to keep the program. I just thought, you know, we just need to hold these people accountable. That's what we need to do, and I don't want to just hold people's hands forever. I don't think that that's going to work. But I agreed to run it for a year and see how it was going. And shortly into my tenure on the bench, we had a graduation from drug court. And at all of our graduations, the graduates speak, and then they get to offer an opportunity for one of their family members or someone from the community to also speak on their behalf. And so her father spoke. And I was not the judge while she was in drug court, except for just the last few weeks. And so I did not take any ownership in her progress or her championing her addiction and living in recovery. But he spoke and talked about how for years, he and his wife were just watching their daughter kill herself, slowly just dying, and how heartbreaking that was to watch that happen. And it's totally out of their control. And every time the phone rang, no matter what time of day or night, they really thought they were getting the call that she had overdosed and died. And it was so painful for them to watch this struggle and to deal with that heartache that they actually started praying that the call would come. They just wanted it to end. And as a parent, that really just tore my heart out, that any parent would just pray for their child to overdose and die. And so he was so grateful for the drug court program, giving her an opportunity to get back in recovery. She has a small business now, she's married, she has adopted her stepdaughter, they have 2 other children together, and she's doing incredibly well. But after that graduation ceremony, I was so touched by what her dad had to say that I thought, if we have one person graduate every 10 years, we have to keep this program. If we can change one life, we have to keep the program. So we've kept the program, and when I took over the program, we had 13 participants. We have more than doubled that number. We have been as high as 32. I think right now we're sit at 28. The COVID-19 has taken its toll on our program and our ability to put people in because of the ongoing contact that has to occur while you're in the program. And we have plans actually to continue to grow the program. We have added an afternoon session so that we can have people here in the morning and in the afternoon, and all day Wednesday pretty much is dedicated to drug court. So I'll talk to you a little bit about the details of drug court, but I want to jump just quickly to the Jpap program. You may have heard about the Jpap program. The sheriff or someone on his behalf may have spoken about it. But the Jpap program is the Jail Chemical Addictions Program. And it's for people who are inmates in our local jail who apply to be approved for the program. Once they're accepted into the program, they move into a separate pod. So they're moved completely out of general population. They're housed together. We have a men's program that was so wildly successful that we actually had a private donor in our community or somehow connected to our community donate $300,000 so we could operate a women's program for 3 years. So that money was donated to us through the Community Foundation. And so at the first of this year, we also started the women's Jpap program. So we have 2 of those. Again, COVID-19 has taken a real toll on our Jpap program because those people are housed in a separate pod at the jail. There's a men's pod and a women's pod, and their day is structured from about 7 a.m. until 10 p.m., 7 days a week. So they have a time that they have to get up. And I didn't know, even as a judge all this time and an attorney all this time, that if you're an inmate in general population in our local jail, you can get up whenever you want and go to bed whenever you want. You know, I thought like in the movies there was lights out and lights up, and that's when everybody got up and everyone went to bed, and that's just not the case. So in the Jpap program, everyone, they have a schedule. And so they get up at the same time. They all have breakfast scheduled. They have rec time scheduled. They have group therapy, individual therapy, NA and AA meetings. The local fire department, their transition team, their quick response team goes in. They teach them basic first aid. They help them with life skills. The jail chaplain is now administering the program in the jail. He's teaching life skills to them. And then we have contracted with Valley Oaks Health, which used to be Wabash Valley, and they are in 20 hours per week in each pod, providing direct services to those people who are in those programs. So up to 12 participants in the men's program and up to 12 participants in the women's program. So that program has been hugely successful. And when we began the program, we were hopeful that it would have an impact on the participants. And every 2 weeks, we have a meeting of the people who are involved in that program. The people at the Sheriff's Department, I go over, Valley Oaks is there, and the people from the quick response team. And then we go back into the pod every 2 weeks and talk to the inmates. And to see the change that is made in those lives has been incredible. It's much like seeing the change in drug court. So drug court is a minimum of 2 years and a maximum of 3 years that they're engaged in that program. And so we see them for a period of time. They see their case manager 6 days a week. So Monday through Friday, and then 1 day during the weekend, they are seeing face-to-face their case manager. And that lasts for about 6 months, and then it trickles down and they start reducing the number of contacts face-to-face, and then it becomes weekly, and then they're also coming to court. And so in the beginning, for about the first year, they come to court every week. And then it becomes every 2 weeks, and then for the last 6 months that they're with us, it becomes monthly. So they come into court and we're talking about how's your job going, how are your family, did you move into that new house, have you gotten your driver's license, did you open a bank account, all of those things. And they come up into the courtroom at a podium one at a time, and they're addressed, and we celebrate their successes, and we punish or sanction their misdeeds as well. So the thing about drug court is that it is teaching them really to live within societal norms. We're just trying to help them address their addiction issues, what led them first to addiction, and what continues to take them back there despite their continued involvement with the criminal justice system. So we call it the court of last resort. We only allow people to come into drug court when all normal or traditional methods of dealing with these issues have failed. All of these people have been on probation before. Almost all of them have been to prison before. They've all been in treatment before, but the traditional methods of dealing with these issues are not working. And so they come into drug court, and I call it also probation on steroids, because it's like probation to the nth degree. They get all of the regular services of probation, but we also require that they do individual therapy. If they're engaged in a relationship or they want to create a relationship while they're in drug court, we require that they do couples counseling. Because, you know, relationships are difficult in the best of circumstances, but they're not in the best of circumstances. And we're trying to address all of the issues that might trip them up later and lead them back to using again, so that that doesn't become an issue. We're trying to give them the tools to address those issues as they come up, so they don't keep coming back to the criminal justice system. A lot of the people who are involved in drug court have children, and so if they're involved with the Department of Child Services, our drug court team members are working with DCS to help them address the issues that they're addressing through the DCS case as well. Our drug court team members will go to court on their behalf and say, here's how they're doing in drug court. Here's what they have accomplished thus far. And some of the things that we want to help them address, we require that they have full-time employment unless they're on disability. And for a lot of these people, it's the first time in their entire adult life that they've ever had a full-time job. It's the first time that they've ever received insurance benefits. I mean, a lot of them get a job, but they only work long enough to get a paycheck so they can go get their fix, and then they're out. And we require you show up to work every day. And if you miss work, we want to know that you've missed work, and we want to know why. They have to attend 90 self-help meetings in the first 90 days. They have to do an IOP program, which is an intensive outpatient treatment program, followed by a relapse prevention, followed by aftercare. And then they're also doing their individual therapy at the same time. So we require each of these things so that they can live a normal life that's free of addiction and free of being involved with the criminal justice system. So nationally, drug courts have been shown to work. The national graduation or success rate is around 30%, 30 to 35%. Ours is hovering around 48%, and it's been that way all along. So we feel like we're doing some things really the right way here to address the issues that we're trying to address. Occasionally, people still get in trouble while they're on drug court. They may pick up new charges. They may get kicked out of the program. We know that we're not going to have 100% even graduate. And even of the graduates, we know that 100% of them will not live a life permanently of recovery. We know that. But we're striving to achieve it regardless. So when people are in drug court, we also want them to address parenting issues. A lot of them, their kids have grown up seeing their parents in addiction. They're living with grandparents, or they're living in foster care, or other kinds of things. And so those are issues that the parents have to address. And we always say, you can't parent them out of guilt and shame. You can't go back and undo what's been done. Let's examine where you are, how you got here, and let's work through the process of healing that relationship with your children. Because what we're also trying to do is avoid that those children will grow up to be addicts themselves. And so we know that addiction, by and large, stems from childhood trauma. And that could be abuse, or it could be neglect, or it could just be the trauma of PTSD of having to live in that kind of environment through your childhood. Imagine during your formative years that's what you have grown up with. It's probably what you're going to seek out because it feels normal to you. You might be surprised to learn that a lot of our drug court participants started using at a very early age. And at whatever age you start using substances, your psychological development really halts. And so even though we're dealing with adults in adult bodies, they're really children mentally, because their psychological development halted in their teenage years. And so all of the things that we all experienced in a normal adolescence and teenage years and young adulthood, they haven't really experienced in the same way. And so we're trying to address those issues so that those children don't continue that cycle of addiction and that cycle of trauma to their own children. When people are involved in drug court and they have children, the whole dynamic of their relationship with their children begins to change, and it's incredible for us to see. They become involved in their children's education. They start taking their children to do things and engage them in community service projects. A lot of times when they get sanctioned in drug court for misdeeds, they get sanctioned with community service. And a lot of times they take their kids to do that with them. And so it's really kind of building that relationship as well and connecting those children to other agencies in the community that they can be engaged with when they're adults as well. We also require that they have stable housing, and that's one of the first things that they have to do. So we have phases of drug court that they move through, and in the first phase, you have to gain stability. So you have to get a full-time job, and you have to have stable housing. You can't really move to phase 2 until the things in your life, the major things in your life, are stable. And so for a lot of these people also who have been couch surfing most of their adult lives, having stable housing is a huge issue for them. And we have partnered with some local landlords who have provided some housing just for drug court people. Because we have a lot of people who apply to drug court, but if you don't have a place to live, you can't really do drug court, because we can't be providing services for people who are living house to house, couch to couch, or under a bridge somewhere. So we require that you have a place to live. A lot of these people have burned all of their bridges with their family members, so they're not willing to let them stay there. And so some of our local landlords have partnered with drug court to have just houses where people who are involved in drug court, and now we have some people also in the vet court, the Veterans Treatment Court from Superior 2, who are living there. And that program, so we have a house on Market Street, for example, where it's a 6-bedroom house. We currently have 5 people living there. Each of them pays $500 per month rent, but $100 of that goes into a savings account in their name. And when they're ready to transition to their own house, that landlord gives them that money. So they have a little pocket of money already saved so that they can apply it either to rent for their new place. Sometimes we let them buy a car with it. They can use it for vacation later if they earn that. And so those kinds of things. A lot of them don't even have a driver's license, and so we require that they do that. We help them open a bank account. We teach them about nutrition and buying groceries, which a lot of them haven't really done on a regular basis. So all of the things that we're kind of taking for granted, we're helping them do. If they haven't graduated from high school, we require that they get a GED. A lot of people have already graduated or obtained a GED, and we help them apply for college when they're about to finish drug court. So we're just helping them set a foundation so that as they move forward, hopefully they don't keep coming back. They can move on and live a life of recovery. We tell them all the time, it's a journey. It's not a destination. You'll never get to recovery. It's just a lifestyle. And in order to be in recovery, you have to change every single thing about the way that you've been living. And one of the things that we tell them is you cannot possibly successfully complete drug court and live a life of recovery and keep even one toe in your former life. You can't keep one toe in that former drug lifestyle. It's all in or it's all out. There's no halfway. And we believe that these people can do this, and so we invite them along the journey to do that. One of the things that we have instituted is when people graduate from drug court, we find the police officer who last arrested them, and we invite them to come to the graduation and present them with their certificate. And so we're really trying to also bridge those two communities, because a lot of those people and their children don't trust law enforcement. And so we're trying to bridge that gap as well in our drug court program. Do you guys have any questions for me? Because I'd be happy to answer them. I'm kind of on fire about these two programs. I think that we're doing incredible things.
What kind of oversight do you guys have for that house, for example, in Market Street? If they all live together, I know we do a lot of stuff with Trinity and with Through the Gate, that kind of thing. So I'm just curious about what their oversight looks like for that.
Well, the oversight is that we're able to go in and out anytime. Part of the lease that they sign, they have to also sign a release of information between their landlord and probation so that we can exchange information. Their landlord can be in and out. And then it's really kind of a self-governing thing. When they have issues about, people aren't keeping things clean, their case managers are talking to them about what's the adult thing to do? How do you handle this? You have to sit down and have a house meeting of sorts. You may not label it that way, but you really need to do it in an adult way. And you need to be able to address people in a civil way so that you can work through those issues. This is probably a good time to address in Jpap, part of the things that they are working on, that's, 12 people living in a pretty small space in the jail, 24/7. They don't go anywhere without all of those people being together except to individual therapy. And so one of the things that they're addressing there is how to accept criticism from people and how to give criticism to people and call people out on their misdeeds or, when they're trying to lie or not be real about the situation. And that's a skill that they're learning to do that. In drug court, they have to learn that by communicating with their case manager. And if they come into drug court, the 3 rules of drug court are show up, work hard, and pay your fees. But the main rule, actually, I guess there are 4, is to be honest. And we have those posted in the courtroom every week. And so when we feel like they're not being honest, we just call them on it. And we just say, until you're ready to be real and ready to be honest, we can't help you. If you're not going to tell us what we're dealing with, we just can't help you. So the oversight is probation, the landlord, and then really self-government. Any other questions?
Do you work with the Trinity Mission here in town?
If people are involved in drug court, they can't also be at Trinity Mission. And what we say is that people can't serve 2 masters. So another requirement is that they can't be on probation in multiple counties, because we can't have them answering to a probation officer in Boone County and getting one set of directions and getting another set of directions from us. We have had some people do Trinity Mission, and we've delayed their entry into drug court until they finish Trinity. And then once they finish Trinity Mission, then they start drug court. But they can't really do both simultaneously.
Have the Trinity graduates shown any better performance in the drug court than, say, the general population?
That's difficult to quantify because every person is different. We had a person who was really failing in drug court and was being revoked from the program, went and did Trinity Mission, did pretty well, came back to drug court, did really well, graduated, but then since graduation has picked up a new drug charge and just had a huge relapse. And part of it, to be honest, in the last few months, we've seen an uptick of the number of relapses for graduates, but countywide, we have seen a huge uptick of overdoses during this pandemic time. And I tell the drug court participants all the time that this pandemic has been difficult for the rest of the world. It's difficult for us. We're social creatures. And so it's been difficult for us to be restricted to home, our contact with other people restricted. And part of what makes drug court and our local recovery programs work is that we're supportive of each other, and it's face-to-face contact, and we see each other as humans. And so during drug court, if somebody does something really well, I'll come off the bench and I'll go down there and hug them because I want them to know that we love them, we support them. But the pandemic has been difficult for all of us for that, but probably tenfold times to people who are still trying to get clean in addiction. And so we've had a lot of relapses because of that.
What do you consider what do you consider a success, number one? And number two, what is the success rate for the number of people who have been through drug court?
So our success rate is right around 48%. We hover typically right at 48%, and as of 2019, our success rate was at 48%. And so what we determined to be a success is that you have successfully completed the program. So you've been with us a minimum of 2 years, you have secured full-time employment, you have stable housing, your relationships are stable, you're supporting your dependents if you have any, and you have maintained sobriety for a minimum of 12 months. Because some people, let's face it, they relapse while they're in the program. So then they can't graduate until they've been with us and clean for another 12 months.
Judge, I've got a question on the comment panel. It says, please ask Judge Barajas how many people participate in drug court, how many participate in the program in a jail, And how many graduates are there from drug court? This is from Elizabeth Justice. I'm sure you probably know.
I do.
Says her audio is not working. So if you'd answer those, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Elizabeth, for your question. I actually may have an email because I emailed our drug court case manager, case coordinator. So let me check. So overall, our graduation rate as we sit here today is 48%. Our retention rate is 62%, and I'll address that momentarily. We've had a total of 112 people in the drug court since its inception. And so the recidivism rate, we've determined that based upon longevity. So we are following up with people for a number of years after they finish drug court. And so that recidivism rate is based upon following up with them. I think it's for a period of 3 years. So the retention rate is 62%. There are some people who don't complete drug court. Some people go through the entire 2-year process and don't get kicked out, but they also haven't attained the minimum requirements, and so we don't let them graduate. There are people who, if they commit a new offense, they might get dismissed. We just had a person this week that we dismissed from the program because she just refuses to be honest with us. And so she's used this pandemic as an opportunity to miss appointments, miss coming to court. You know, I'm sick, I need to go see a doctor. And so we would say, we need to go to the doctor, give us the paperwork. And then she would, for whatever reason, not do that. She tried to tell us that she had COVID, although, you know, our local health department would know if she had COVID or if she'd even been tested. And so we checked with them, that information was false. We had her come to court. She told everybody that we were making her come to court and infect everyone. So we made her go get tested that day. That test was negative. And it's just been an ongoing thing. And really what we think is happening, and what actually we have now determined was happening, is that she actually was just continuing to use. And so if they're not willing to do the minimum of, you know, be honest with us, tell us what we're dealing with, then we just can't help them. They just can't do the program if they're not honest. So she was terminated from the program. So we do have some people who are terminated because some people just aren't ready to do the program. So those are the statistics today. Good questions though, Elizabeth. I can always count on you for that. Any other questions?
How do people get assigned to drug court? Is it something that, you know, they come in with a drug offense and you as the judge assign them, or is it a volunteer program?
That's a great question. Drug court is completely voluntary. Sometimes when they come in for their initial hearing, based just only on the charges, and if the name sounds familiar, or if I know they've been in trouble multiple times, and you know, as a former defense attorney and a former prosecutor, if it's a name that I'm familiar with, there's probably a good reason for that. And so sometimes at their initial hearing, I'll say, you need to talk to your attorney about drug court. They can be referred by their attorney. They can be referred by the prosecutor's office. They can be referred by probation. And if they're interested in it, they'll talk to one of those people and see if they'll get a referral. Once we receive the referral, we talk about it at a drug court staffing. So our drug court team consists of the judge, a prosecutor representative, a defense attorney representative. We have 2 service providers, mental health providers, addictions primarily. We have 2 police officers, a city officer and the jail commander at the jail. We have a quick response team member, and we also have a former drug court participant, a graduate of the program. So we meet Wednesday mornings every week, and we talk about all the referrals as they come in. And so if we think that they're a viable candidate, then the prosecutor is called the gatekeeper. The prosecutor can nix anybody and say, we're not going to allow them to do the program. They're pretty judicious about using that. They tend to step back and let the team decide, unless it's just someone whose prior criminal record is so egregious, or it's a name that keeps coming up in police reports as a dealer of narcotics. We don't want those people in our drug court. Then they can say that we're going to exercise prosecutorial discretion and not allow them to do it. If the prosecutor doesn't object and the team believes that they're a viable candidate, then our drug court case coordinator goes to the jail or meets with them at the probation department if they're not housed in jail, and does an extensive interview. It's a 2 to 3 hour interview with them. Then she reports back to the drug court staffing at the next meeting, and then we take a team vote. That's how we do almost everything, is by team vote. And so all of us say none of us are really the experts in all areas. And so we have to use our expertise in the areas in which we have that. And so I default to the team vote almost always. Occasionally I'll say, I'm not going to do that, but it's really rare that I would override the majority. And so we do everything basically by a team vote. And so if they're selected to be a part of the program, if they have successfully completed the interview and then the team agrees that they should be a part of the program, then they're given a plea agreement from the prosecutor that requires that they successfully complete drug court. And then they have to volunteer to do it. Some people come in and they think they want to enter drug court, and then for whatever reason at the last minute they say, you know what, this program really isn't for me. And so they just do something different. Sometimes they enter a different plea agreement. Sometimes they go to trial. You know, they have all of those options still available to them.
Okay.
And along those lines, let me just also address about Jpap. The Jpap doesn't guarantee anything for any of those participants. And Elizabeth, if I didn't answer your question, currently we don't really have anyone in the Jpap program because no one could go into the jail to provide services. So the people who were in the program when the pandemic began have completed the program. We let those people run their course. Our last graduate just graduated about 3 weeks ago. But right now we don't have any new people in there. The jail, I think, is planning to resume normal operations in the middle of June. And so we'll start those programs again. But if you finish successfully the Jpap program, which almost everyone does, we've only had a few people not complete. One person was kicked out because they started an argument with somebody in the program. One person was brought up by a senior judge when the sitting judge was gone, and they sentenced them and released them from custody, even though they were in the program. And then we had another judge in the county who sentenced someone to the Department of Corrections while they were in the program. So those 3 people did not complete. I think everyone else has completed the program. But completing Jpap doesn't guarantee that you're not going to get sentenced in any particular way. It doesn't carry with it an automatic, you're going to get released from custody. It doesn't mean automatically that you're going to get probation instead of going to prison. So there have been people who have completed that program who still have gone to the Department of Corrections. There have been people who have completed the program who get a time served deal. There have been people who completed that program who get probation. So there's no guarantee that if you do that program, you're getting any particular kind of treatment on your sentence.
Okay. We do have another question on our comment board from Jake Moore. I think you probably know Jake.
Jake's actually part of our drug court team. Let me just tell you that.
There you go. Jake asks, how has the program evolved while you have been presiding over it? Specifically, have recommended services been added or removed? And why have those changes been made?
Good question, Jake. So the program, first of all, has blossomed. It's grown. It's almost tripled in size from the time that I took over. And we plan to double that size in the next 5 years, hopefully, before I leave office in 6 years. So we've added the requirement of relationship counseling, we'll call it. We have required that people do individual therapy. It's really difficult to address addiction if you're not addressing the issues that led you to use it in the first place, right? Because all of us have stressors in our lives. Most of us just don't turn to drugs to deal with them. And so what has led you down that path in the first instance? Until you pick those scabs off and really examine those wounds, you really are not going to be able to have long-term recovery. And so we're requiring that people do that individual counseling. We require that relationship counseling because a lot of people come into our program and they're already involved in a relationship. But for those of us who are married, and some of us have been married more than once, you know, marriage is difficult in the best of circumstances. So I think you take one person who's in the throes of addiction and maybe 2 people who are in the throes of addiction, or one person who's in the throes of addiction and the other person who's been enabling that all of these years. You have to address those issues because once that person gets clean or those people get clean, they're not the same people anymore. You know, they have a whole set of, a different set of ideals and the way that they look at things. And until you broach those topics and even address those past hurts of, you know, you've been high for 13 years that I've been with you, I don't even really know who you are. The people in drug court really don't even know who they are. And so we have to really let them examine those things in a therapeutic way so that when they move forward, it's in the best possible circumstances, just to help them, give them the best solid foundation to move forward. So those are probably the 2 major changes. Involving law enforcement in drug court has been another change that we've done. When I started, we had just the jail commander was on the team, and we've added a city police officer, and then bring them in for graduation, and really just to try to bridge those two communities.
Thank you, Judge. We do have another question, and I apologize. It's not all lawyers that are in our Kiwanis Club, you know, but we do have a majority of them, unfortunately. I mean, I don't mean that. I just kid them a lot. But Elizabeth asked again, let's see, if there are any other programs in the jail for education. Can prisoners get high school equivalency degree? Can they learn a trade or skill? Can they virtually take courses at Ivy Tech or other online coursework?
Okay, so in our local jail, they do have an opportunity to work on their GED or their high school equivalency degree. Again, that's been suspended during this pandemic because the ability of people to come in and out of the jail had to be eliminated so that we could reduce the risk of infection at the jail. Because if you can imagine, if an inmate comes in and has the virus, everyone who's in the jail, all of those inmates and all of those employees have to be quarantined together for a period of at least 2 weeks. So we had to reduce the traffic coming in and out of the jail. So those programs all got suspended during this pandemic. They don't have any college class ability, I don't think, in our local jail. I don't think that Ivy Tech or Ball State or anyone else works with our local jail. I think that those classes only occur in the Department of Corrections. They also have individual therapy. You can get some therapy while you're in jail. They have Celebrate Recovery, AA and NA occurs there as well. So they do have some ability to address some of those issues. But honestly, some of the people who are engaged in those programs are only doing it because it helps them get out of the pod occasionally. And so they get transferred to a different area of the jail for a period of time. They get to socialize with people who are not in their pod, and then they go back to their pod. So although some people are involved in those programs for all the right reasons, obviously some of them are not involved in those programs for the right reasons. So that's another way that Jpap is really a little bit different from those programs.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, and I apologize all the questions, but we learn more from that.
Oh, sure. I love the questions.
How have you been dealing? How has the courthouse exactly been dealing with this COVID-19, and how you handle cases? Are you doing everything virtually, or do you have people actually come into court?
So our criminal caseload for all 3 courts, we're still conducting all of those hearings in person. Because the courts have to be open to the public by Indiana and federal constitution, we have the ability to broadcast those by Zoom virtually, so the public can participate or can not really participate, but observe those proceedings if they want to do that. Civil cases, non-emergency civil cases for the first couple of months were continued. And we just got an order from the Indiana Supreme Court last week that all of these non-essential hearings are to be continued and delayed until August 15th. The courts have the ability, though, to conduct those things virtually, and so I just last week started utilizing Zoom for court proceedings, and so moving forward, we're going to just have our regular docket the way we always have. We'll just conduct all civil proceedings that are scheduled on the court's docket by Zoom if the parties concur. If anyone objects, then we can continue it out until the Supreme Court lifts that moratorium. But all criminal cases are happening in person because it's important that the defendant be in court because we don't know really sometimes what's going to happen. So the 3 judges have all agreed that criminal cases will be done here in person, and then civil cases, I think Judge Timus is doing his by telephone, and I'm not sure how Judge Lohorn is handling her civil docket, but we're going to utilize Zoom moving forward. And just, I think today I sent the order to the Bar Association to tell people how to do that. And then we are opening courtroom doors. We're propping those open so no one has to touch them. We're providing masks for people who come in who don't have them. We require social distancing in the courtroom. We have sanitizing wipes and spray and hand sanitizer on counsel tables. So we're trying to just protect people as much as possible and still try to resume some sense of normalcy here.
Great. Any other questions from anybody?
I will say that once the courtrooms are open again to the public coming in, drug court is always open to the public. You're welcome to attend. We would have you sign an oath of confidentiality because what we talk about in drug court is confidential. But you're welcome to attend. And it's Wednesday mornings at 10 o'clock. Once we get back to our normal schedule, it'll be Wednesday mornings at 10 o'clock, Wednesday afternoons at 3 o'clock. And everyone's welcome to attend. So if ever you're interested, just come on down. We'd love to have you.
Judge, you know, as Kiwanis, we're very, very interested in the safety and the help to our kids of our community. What do you see us as Kiwanis doing to help you and the kids?
So we are meeting in July, the drug court team, and the two case managers and the case coordinator and I have been working on how we can change the program so that once people graduate, they don't feel like their entire support system is taken away from them. And that's what we keep hearing is, even though they come to drug court only monthly for the last 6 months or so, they feel like once they graduate that we're gone from their lives. And we keep assuring them we haven't gone anywhere, you still can reach out to us. But it probably does feel like that because it's really the first time that they've ever perceived any of those who are involved in the drug court team as anything besides adversaries. And so then when we're gone from seeing them on a regular basis, it probably does feel like that. So one of the things that we're trying to do is to help them establish those connections with other people in the community so that when drug court ends, they don't feel like their support system is gone. And so we're working on developing additional components of drug court, and I hesitate because we're still trying to figure out how this is going to work, where we may have people from local banks come in and talk to them about finances and car loans and your credit score and applying for a mortgage and those kinds of things, how decisions today can affect you down the road in a financial aspect. People from maybe the extension office talking to them about health and nutrition and how eating out, ordering a pizza out versus making one with your family, not only nutritionally, how is it different, financially, how is it different, but emotionally, what are you teaching your children when you're working together with them in the kitchen, and what kinds of things can happen during that process. Housing issues, educational issues, parenting issues, how we can bring people from the community in to facilitate some of those workshops so that when people are no longer involved in drug court, they feel like they have a connection with other people in the community who can help bridge that gap long term. And probably develop relationships with them and their families so that the kids also perceive those relationships and can see how positive that can be to be involved in your community in that way.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions from anybody? Well, we've gotten a lot of thanks on the comment board, and they want to thank you, Judge Barajas, and really a very, very interesting time and what you're going through and what that entire courthouse. We appreciate everything you're doing, and we feel we can if we can help at all. Please feel free to get a hold of us. Jerry is the president. I'm just the moderator, I guess, today. But if there's anything we can do to help, please let us know.
I will. Thank you for having me. And let me just mention one more thing. Because of the things that Montgomery County is doing in being creative to try to address the opioid pandemic, if nothing else, and addiction, we've actually been recognized by a lot of national and statewide groups. So we have spoken already at 2 conferences. We were scheduled to speak at one in June that's now been moved to November. And then we also are highlighted in an exhibit at the Indiana State Museum. And so it's probably suspended right now because of the governor's executive orders, but that will be opening up soon, and it will be there for a year. It opened February 1st, and it'll be an event there or an exhibit there for the next year. So you can invite people to go and see that exhibit. It covers addiction and drug use for all ages. And one of the things that I meant to say is that a number of the people who come into our drug court program, when we were talking about their psychological development halting as kids, a lot of them used for the first time with their own parents.
Wow.
At a young age, like 9, 10, 11 years old. And so a lot of them, that's how they were introduced to substance use in the first place. And so if we can address that for the parents and the adults in our drug court program, it'll have an impact on their kids who won't be subject to that. I mean, that's just a heartbreaking statistic to even have to talk about.
Great. Jerry, you have anything else? Jerry?
There, I couldn't get the mic unmuted. Judge Heather, thanks for joining us today and presenting a view of drug court, and thanks for everything that you and the court team does for our community. Elizabeth had one more comment on the comment panel. Sounds like drug court is a success. We all need to help offenders and those with addictions recover. And yeah, that's absolutely true. Gary, thanks for conducting the interview and moderating things today. I think that went well. Our speaker next week is going to be Mark Monteith. He's with the Indiana Pacers. I'm not sure exactly what his function is, but it'll have something to do with sports, which I know I miss a lot. So hopefully we'll have something that he can talk about what's going to go forward with the NBA. Again, I would like for all of you to reach out to one or two members that have not been participating in our virtual Zoom meetings, and try to encourage them to join us each week. It appears that this is the way we're going to do it for the next 4 to 8 to maybe another 12 weeks. I really don't know. When we can get together face to face, we'll certainly announce it and celebrate that. But for the foreseeable future, this is the way we're gonna meet up. So let's keep the club going and do what you can to spread the word and get additional folks to come. Closing thought for the day: fill your life with adventures, not things. Have stories to tell, not stuff to show off. And with that, we're adjourned. I'll leave the meeting run for a few minutes so y'all can visit. I'm going to shut the speaker